I was serving my country thousands of miles from home. It was a long and grueling deployment, filled with exhausting days and lonely nights. Still, I stayed strong, holding on to the thought that, when it was over, I'd return to the arms of the woman I loved. That thought, her smile, her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she was excited, it was my anchor. Through the scorching heat, the endless drills, the tension that never truly left our bones, I held on to us. Letters from her were rare, but when they came, I reread them until the paper wore thin. Each word was a promise I clung to. I remember one particular night. The sky over the base was pitch black, littered with unfamiliar constellations. My unit had just returned from a 14-hour patrol, and the only thing keeping me awake was the thought that maybe, just maybe, there would be an email waiting. I opened the rusted laptop in the rec tent, the screen flickering under the weak overhead light. A single new message blinked in my inbox. The subject line was simple: "We need to talk." My heart sank. I clicked it open with trembling fingers. The words that followed didn't even feel real. "I'm filing for divorce. I've emptied our joint account. My boyfriend moved in last week." I read it again and again, hoping the words would change if I stared long enough, but they didn't. They stayed as sharp and brutal as the first time. She didn't even sign off with her name. I sat there, numb, the sounds of distant gunfire and generators humming in the background. I should have felt something: rage, betrayal, grief, but all I felt was hollow, like something inside me had snapped. Quietly, cleanly. I typed a single word: "Understood," and hit send. That was it. No begging, no shouting, no breakdown. Because in that moment, I realized something. The woman I had loved, the one I had dreamed of returning to, was already gone. All that remained was a stranger behind a screen, and so, under that foreign sky, I made a vow. When I returned, I wouldn't return to her. I would return to myself. Chapter 2. The Message. Then one day, during a short break, I checked my email. At the top of my inbox was a message that changed everything. Subject: "I can't do this anymore." My breath caught. I clicked it open without hesitation, my fingers cold despite the desert heat outside the tent. Her message was short, clinical, detached. "I've decided to move on with my life. I've filed for divorce. I've withdrawn all the money from our joint account, and just so you know, my boyfriend has moved in with me. I need to be honest with myself and with you. I hope you understand." No greeting, no signature. Just words, emotionless, surgical, as if she were canceling a subscription, not walking away from a marriage. I stared at the screen. Time seemed to slow down. Around me, the low murmur of voices faded into the background. I was somewhere else. Floating, disconnected, trying to make sense of something that simply refused to make sense. We had talked just a few weeks ago. She had said she missed me, that she couldn't wait for me to come home, that she loved me. Those were her words. Loved me. And now this? My hand hovered over the keyboard. What do you say to someone who betrays you from the safety of your shared home while you serve in a war zone? I typed, "Understood," and hit send. No more, no less. I didn't rage. I didn't plead. I didn't fall apart. Not then. Instead, I stood up, walked outside into the harsh afternoon sun, and let the heat burn away the chill her words had left. In me. That night, as I lay in my bunk, staring up at the metal ceiling, I began to think differently. About everything. About her. About what I wanted. About who I'd become. She had ended a chapter, but I would write the next one. And this time, I would write it for me. "I'm filing for divorce. I've emptied our joint account. Oh, and my boyfriend is living in our house now." That was it. 3 sentences, no hesitation, no remorse. I read them over and over again, each word driving deeper into my chest, like a dull blade. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. So casual, so indifferent. Like we hadn't shared years of love, laughter, and struggle. Like our wedding vows were just words recited for show. I leaned back in the worn plastic chair, the heat from the metal roof pressing down on me. Outside the tent, life went on. Soldiers joked, boots stomped across gravel, radios crackled with chatter. But inside me, something had gone quiet. Still, like the silence after an explosion. My thoughts weren't clear, but they were sharp. Our house, our account, our life, now hers, and his. Part of me wanted to scream, to break something, but I didn't. Because at that moment, something more powerful than anger took hold of me. Clarity. This wasn't the woman I married. That woman would have never waited until I was thousands of miles away, serving my country, to gut our life from the inside out. That woman wouldn't have hidden behind an email. No, she was already gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. And maybe, just maybe, that was a gift in disguise. I took a slow breath and stood up. I wasn't going to beg for explanations. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already thrown me away like a used match. I was going to rebuild, quietly, strategically, with purpose. I walked out of that tent, my back straighter than it had been in weeks. She thought she had broken me, but what she really did was set me free. I sat there, staring at the screen. No explanations, no apologies, just cold, matter-of-fact words. It was strange, how quickly everything could collapse. One moment, I was a soldier on a break, hoping for a moment of comfort from home. Next, I was a man unmoored, cut adrift by the one person I trusted most. The silence in that moment was deafening. Not just around me, but inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't even blink for what felt like minutes. There was nothing left to say. She had said it all. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She was done. And that told me everything I needed to know. I remembered our wedding day, how she looked walking down the aisle, the shaky vows, the laughter during the first dance. I remembered the nights we stayed up late planning our future. Now, all of it reduced to 3 cold lines in an email. I'm filing for divorce. I've emptied our joint account. My boyfriend is living in our house now. I should have felt hate, but I didn't. What I felt was release. There was no longer any illusion to hold on to, no false hope. She didn't just leave. She destroyed, deliberately, cleanly. And in that destruction, I saw something unexpected: clarity. I had nothing left tying me to her, no reason to hold back. And that meant I was free to rebuild, not what we had, but something better, stronger, mine. I closed the laptop, stood up, rolled my shoulders back. That was the last time I cried for her, though the tears never reached my eyes. She wanted me broken, but what she created was a man with nothing left to lose. And that's the most dangerous kind of man there is. I read it over and over again, waiting to feel anger, heartbreak, maybe even panic, but I didn't. It was as if the emotions had passed me by, like a wave that should have crushed me but simply rolled over without touching the shore. All I felt was stillness, a strange, hollow calm. I took a deep breath and replied with a single word. Understood. No accusations. No desperate questions. No pleas. Just that. Because in that moment, I realized something profound. She didn't deserve my reaction. She wanted to shock me. She wanted control over how I felt, even from a distance. But I wouldn't give her that. I had seen chaos before. I had stood in the middle of war zones, watched lives change in seconds, heard things that echoed in my mind, long after the dust settled. This wasn't chaos. This was clarity. She had made her choice. She'd emptied our account, moved a stranger into our home, and sent a cold farewell across a digital ocean. Fine, she could have it. The house, the money, the comfort of believing she'd broken me with an email. Because what she didn't realize was that the man reading her message wasn't the same man who had left home months ago. This man had learned to survive in uncertainty, to adapt, to rebuild, and while she was looking for a reaction, I was already thinking 5 steps ahead. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of a new chapter, one written not out of bitterness, but with the quiet power of someone who knows exactly who he is and who he refuses to be again. So I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked out into the light of a new beginning, where pain would become strength, and silence would speak louder than any revenge ever could. No arguments, no drama, just silence. A silence she clearly wasn't expecting. Time passed. Dust settled, both overseas and in my heart. I returned home, but not to our home. I had already made other plans. I stepped off that plane a different man, not just changed by war, but by truth. The kind of truth that strips away everything you thought was solid and forces you to build again from the ground up. There was no one waiting for me at the airport, no welcome home signs, no teary embrace, just the rhythm of my boots on tile and the steady beating of my own heart, calm and resolved. While she was busy playing house with someone new, I was preparing for something far more powerful. Closure. Before I even boarded the flight home, I had already consulted lawyers. Quietly, efficiently. I moved all remaining assets into protected accounts, canceled shared services, filed formal reports about the unauthorized withdrawal she made from our joint savings, the same savings we'd planned to use to start a family. I even had my name removed from the deed of the house, a house that no longer felt like mine the moment another man's toothbrush sat in my bathroom. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. I rented a small place just outside the city, modest, clean, quiet. It had nothing of us in it, and that was exactly what I needed. A blank slate. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was full of intention. No late-night arguments, no lies dressed up as comfort, just space. For healing, for rebuilding. She reached out once. A text. "Can we talk?" I read it, and left it unread. Because some conversations don't deserve resurrection. Some people don't deserve a second entrance into your peace. And in that silence, I found power. Not the kind that shouts. The kind that stays still and moves forward. While she was playing house with her new boyfriend, I was moving strategically, calm, focused, one step ahead. I didn't announce my decisions. I didn't warn her. I just acted. Removed my name from the mortgage. Closed every shared account we owe, once called ours. Flagged the unauthorized withdrawal with the bank, and submitted the proper documentation. Every move I made was measured. Not out of spite, but precision. Let her think I was broken. Let her mistake my silence for surrender. Meanwhile, my lawyers handled everything behind the scenes, swiftly and quietly. No public drama, no messy online arguments, just clean, quiet execution. She didn't notice. Not until it was too late. The first call came from the bank. She was confused. Apparently, her access to certain funds had suddenly disappeared. Next came a letter. A formal dispute filed over the house. My legal removal from the mortgage and the report of her breach of financial agreement. Then the car. It was in my name. I had it sold before I even landed back on American soil. Piece by piece, the fantasy she built with him started to crumble, because while she had been busy replacing me with someone else, I had been reclaiming everything I had contributed, everything she thought I'd be too emotional, too weak to take back. And the most brutal part? I did it all without raising my voice, without a single insult, without revenge, just facts, just the truth, just the law. She expected a fight. What she got was something worse. Indifference and efficiency. I was done trying to be the man she didn't value. I had become the man she never saw coming. Soon, she discovered that the car was under my name and already sold, that the house was now under legal dispute due to her breach of agreement, that everyone we knew, but most importantly, she realized I was gone, not just physically, gone. No trace of the man who once waited by the phone, no bitterness, no attempts to explain or fix what she had shattered. I had moved on. New job, new city, new life, peace. She sent messages. First a simple, "Can we talk?" Then came the guilt-laced attempts. I made a mistake. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought you'd fight for me. But by then, her words meant as much as the silence she once gave me. There was nothing left to save, only lessons to remember. She thought I would chase her, that I would hold on to something toxic because of shared history and old feelings. But what she didn't understand was that sometimes letting go is the victory. I found a small apartment in a quiet part of the city, nothing fancy, just mine. I filled it with calm. I took long walks. I made new friends. I slept better, breathed deeper, smiled more. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to love me right. I was just living. And her? She was left standing in the ruins of her decisions, holding the ashes of everything she thought she'd control. I never looked back, because the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's freedom. She tried to reach out, first with short texts, then with calls, but I never answered, not out of hate, not out of pride, but because I no longer owed her anything, not a reply, not an explanation, not a piece of myself. Each message came at random hours. Hey, can we talk? I've been thinking about you. I miss how things used to be. Then came the calls. One after midnight, one on the anniversary of our wedding, one from a number I didn't recognize, because she'd started calling from friends' phones when I stopped picking up. But the silence between us had become sacred. I had built peace in that silence, brick by brick, and I wasn't going to let her voice tear it down again. The truth was, she hadn't reached out because she loved me. She reached out because she realized what she'd lost. Because the chaos she chose had collapsed under the weight of reality. Because the man she thought was waiting had already moved on. She never expected that I would actually let go, that I wouldn't come crawling back with questions or anger or demands. But I didn't crawl. I rose, and every time my phone lit up with her name, I was reminded of the strength it took to walk away, and the peace I found in never turning back. Forgiveness? I had already given it. But not for her. For me. So I could be free. So I could finally live a life that wasn't haunted by betrayal, but defined by clarity. She had her chance to choose me. She didn't. Now I choose silence. And in that silence, I found everything she could never give me: closure, strength, and a future. Because sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. She wanted to break me, but all she did was set me free. It took me time to understand that. At first, the silence felt empty, heavy, like a room after an argument, still buzzing with words never said. But then, it changed. The silence became space, space to heal, to breathe, to think clearly for the first time in years. She had expected fireworks, rage-begging tears. What she got instead was a closed door and the sound of a life moving on without her. And that's what true strength looks like, not in shouting, not in revenge, but in peace. I no longer needed closure from her. The betrayal itself was closure. She showed me who she really was, and I believed her. The freedom I found wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet mornings with coffee and no tension. It was nights of uninterrupted sleep. It was laughter that wasn't forced. I no longer walked on eggshells. I no longer questioned my worth. I no longer waited for someone to value what I freely gave. She taught me a harsh lesson, but it was one I needed. That love isn't measured by how much pain you can endure for someone. It's measured by how much peace you feel when they're gone. So I didn't respond. Not to the calls, not to the messages, not even to the apology she finally sent months later. Because some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Not out of anger, but out of wisdom. She let me go without looking back. Now I'm doing the same, and this time, I'm not just free. I'm better. And she had to learn the hard way that losing someone who would never have done to her what she did to me was the real punishment. I didn't need to ruin her. Life did that on its own. Because when you gamble with something real and lose, there's no going back. She had someone who loved without limits, who stayed loyal through distance, doubt, and silence. Someone who never wavered, even when everything else did. But in her search for something new, she forgot the value of something true. It took her time to see it, but eventually reality set in. The boyfriend she left me for? He didn't stay. Turns out, building a life on betrayal is like building a house on sand. It always sinks. And when it did, she looked around and realized what she'd done. The stability she'd thrown away. The heart she crushed. The future she burned for a moment of escape. But by then it was too late. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was just gone. Living a quiet life. Working a job I loved. Spending time with people who brought me peace, not pain. Every now and then, I'd hear through mutual friends how she was doing. How she seemed different now. Quieter. Sadder. Regret does that to people. It echoes in empty rooms. It lives in the spaces where love used to be. She made her choice, and I made mine. To heal. To rebuild. To rise. Because some lessons can't be taught. Only lived. And she lived hers in the ruins of what could have been. As for me, I didn't just survive what she did. I became someone better because of it. And that's the kind of revenge life hands out on its own. Not fire, not fury, just peace. The kind she'll never find in anyone else. If this story moved you, if it made you think, or if you've ever faced something similar and came out stronger, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next powerful story. Your support helps us keep sharing real emotions, real lessons, and stories that remind us all of one simple truth. Sometimes losing someone is exactly what sets you free. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next chapter.